Last week in Motorsport, a Spielberg blockbuster in F1, a last lap chase for the win in NASCAR, and Tanak overturns Toyota in World Rally. For the week of June 23rd to 29th, a big week of racing action, so let's get straight into it. F1 heads to Austria for round 11 of 2025. Off the back of Canada a couple of weeks ago, the momentum was with Mercedes and George Russell, also Kimi Antonelli taking a podium there. Merc is known for being very good in cool conditions, which Austria was not. Seemed like it might be at first. There was a big hailstorm on Thursday, but that quickly made way for sweltering heat. The temperature kept climbing over the weekend. A sweaty and overheating race kind of made the threat of Mercedes obsolete. Well, that's the threat of their pace at least. The threat of an out-of-control Kimi Antonelli at turn 3, absolutely yeeting Max Verstappen on lap 1. This was just a complete rookie error from Kimi. The 18-year-old locked up the brakes, took far too much risk on the opening lap, and, well, clobbered the man who's won here 5 times. Max was very quick to give Kimi some grace. After all, he's been there before. He made some mistakes in his rookie year back in 2015, and it was water under the bridge, both very mature about it. But Max being out on lap 1 does feel very weird. It's unusual to see him not finish a race these days. He did finish 31 in a row in the points, but that streak is now ended, but at least he's now got 2 fewer penalty points on his license for Silverstone. Meanwhile, further up the order, it was the McLarens, of course, making moves. Oscar Piastri got past Charles Leclerc for second place at the first corner. He then set about hustling his teammate for about the next 20 laps. But Lando Norris was having none of it. He got close, Piastri even nosed ahead at one stage, but Norris just had too much pace and too much wiles about him. And I think this is a sign that Lando has learned from his skirmishes earlier in 2025. Back in Saudi, he wasted so many laps playing DRS chicken with Lewis Hamilton. He would pass him at the final corner, Hamilton would sling straight past on the main straight with DRS. But he was much more strategic and thinking forward in Austria. He let Piastri pass him at turn 3 momentarily, but he knew he'd get the DRS again down to turn 4, and he zipped straight back past him. Impressive stuff, and I think this has to be up there with Lando's best wins so far. Piastri had to settle for second ahead of Leclerc and Lewis Hamilton in fourth. Russell was pretty invisible in P5, he didn't really feature in the race. Liam Lawson had the drive of his life to finish P6, holding off Fernando Alonso in 7th. Both of them were the only drivers to make the one-stop strategy work in Austria. Alonso himself had to hold off a hard-charging protege in the form of Gabriel Bortoleto, who took his first points in F1 and also Sauber's first double points in nearly 2 years, with Nico Hülkenberg 9th. Ocon rounded off the points with just one Red Bull car scoring in Lawson. Verstappen was obviously out on lap 1, Hadjar got caught between strategies and just lacked pace. Yuki Tsunoda had a stinker of a race, hitting Franco Colapinto and just generally being absolutely nowhere in terms of pace. It's really painful to see, and the curse of that second Red Bull seat is not getting any brighter. And pain was also on the menu for Williams, sadly. Carlos Sainz's brakes caught fire on the formation lap, then Alex Albon retired with power unit issues early on in the race, so nul point for Williams. They'll be hoping for much better at their home race in Silverstone in just a few days' time. Fingers crossed they can turn things around, because it has been a terrible run of form for Williams. Norris cuts the gap to Piastri to just 15 points now. That's looking a little bit healthier than it was last time out in Canada. Max Verstappen drops serious ground to the McLarens. He's now 61 points adrift of Oscar Piastri at the top of the standings, and he's just 6 points ahead of his good pal George Russell, who I think we have to say is firmly in the championship fight, even if he wasn't really in the mix in Austria. Moving on to Formula 2, we had 2 action-packed races in F2 this weekend. One for chaotic reasons, the other for what was a pretty amazing race actually. I'll start off with the sprint, which was the former of the 2. There was chaos from the get-go. Sami Megatunev ended up upside down after an inauspicious move on Arvid Lindblad, again at turn 3. The Frenchman cannoning off the Red Bull back driver and flipping over not only him, but Luke Browning, and it could have been much worse. This is where we give a massive shout out to the Halo for yet again keeping the drivers safe. If not for the Halo, we could have seen, well, it doesn't really bear thinking about, but Megatunev's wheel would have breached the cockpit of Luke Browning, so chalk up another win for the Halo. Speaking of wins, the win on the line was fought between Pepe Marti and Joshua Dirksen, and after several laps of nibbling away at the Paraguayan, it was Marti who came out on top, on lap 18 making a beautiful pass around the outside of his adversary. Roman Stanek closed on Dirksen for P2, but he was denied by a last lap yellow flag right behind them. caused by Amory Cordial. We meet again. One of F2's longest serving and most accident-prone drivers, it has to be said. He was on course for an unbelievable P4 finish, which would have equalled his career best finish in F2, only to throw it away on the final lap by spinning again at turn 3. And with cars battling behind for the minor positions, cue a conga line of crashes as Gabriele Mini, John Bennett and Leonardo Fornaroli all piled into one another, making a great big Formula 2 car centipede. All eliminated on the spot, just 12 cars saw the flag. Marty took the win, Dirksen P2, Stanek P3. Now if that wasn't bad enough for Cordial, his car was recovered after the race, just ahead of the Porsche Super Cup race. See if you can spot what goes wrong with the recovery process here.
People who forget what it's like to be 16. You know these whole...
Now that's a lot of damage. That incident actually delayed the Porsche Super Cup race, unsurprisingly because of the giant fucking sign on the track. Something you don't see every day. They cleared it away eventually, and on Sunday we had the feature race, and this, I'm going to say, is one of the best races I've seen all year in any motorsport in 2025. It was slightly less dramatic in terms of collisions and whatnot, but it was not lacking for action with wheel-to-wheel racing pretty much throughout. First, it was Marty, Fornaroli and Alex Dunn fighting for position. Dunn was coming off the back of an excellent P4 in FP1 with McLaren in Formula 1. He brought that momentum into the race and he had some great battles with Marty. Later on, it was Verschoor and Martins fighting for the lead, then Marty and Martins and Fornaroli battling for the podium. We had a late moment for Ollie Goethe, again at, you guessed it, turn 3. Almost flipped his car at turn 3 after hitting a sausage curve and going wide. He was okay, car wasn't. Turn 3, just a magnet for chaos. I definitely recommend going to watch the highlights on YouTube. I can't do it justice, but Verschoor came out on top. Alex Dunn was second, only to be disqualified for excessive plank wear. That put P3 driver Fornaroli into second, with Jack Crawford moving up to third. And all this meant that Verschoor would have had a narrow 6-point lead over Dunn in the championship, but because of that DSQ, Dunn loses 18 points and the gap is now 24 points. A big lead for Verschoor as the season hits the halfway mark. Maybe 5th time's the charm for Verschoor as he tries to win that F2 title. Silverstone is in just a few days. And the little one, Formula 3, was in circulation, of course, in Styria. The sprint race was kind of bizarre. We had a breakaway group of Wharton, Giusti, Ogachukwu, Solov and Indrapuvazak in the top 5. They all broke away and they had a pretty big gap from like the entire rest of the pack. And they were just fighting 3 cars wide, 4 cars wide into turns 3 and 4 every lap. It's Formula 3 on a track this short is just nuts. Because you've got 30 cars all trying to hit the same piece of tarmac. It's impossible for me to describe what was going on in this race. Again, go watch the highlights on YouTube, they're very good. The only people that weren't involved in these battles and skirmishes were Brando Bedoya and Charlie Wurtz. If you recognise those surnames, it's because their dads raced each other in the late 90s. Bedoya made a move at turn 3, made a move, creamed into the back of Charlie Wurtz, took them both out of the race. That breakaway pack stayed far ahead of the rest of the chasing pack. It was Wharton who took the win ahead of Giusti and Nicholas Solov taking P3. And Solov wasn't done there, he showed a masterclass in the feature race. He was miles ahead of anyone else, came home 6 seconds in the lead, but he fell foul of the same issue as Alex Dunn in Formula 2. Plank wear got him disqualified, so instead we had a podium made up of massive movers. Martinez Stenson took P1, he was up 14 places from P15 on the grid. Tim Tramnitz was second after starting 17th, that's 15 places. And Mary Boyle was up 11 places from P14 for a very impressive podium. Strangely, the F3 cars kept quite a clean sheet in the second in the feature race. Only one DNF, and that was Brando Bedoya having a shocker of a weekend, living up to his father's F1 legacy by failing to score any points at all. He's driving for Prema, so should be able to change that in the remaining 4 rounds. Rafael Camara bagged points in both races, and he still leads the championship with 114 points ahead of Tramnitz. Solov drops to P3 after that disqualification. Stenson leaps up to P4, I think he was like 11th or something before the weekend. And we have just 4 weekends to go in Formula 3. to get this decided. The other big news this week was the global release of the F1 movie in cinemas now. I haven't seen it yet, I will probably go and see it next week after Silverstone. Reviews so far have ranged from fairly negative to quite positive. A lot of praise for the cinematography, the score, the action, the immersion. While the story and some of the themes have apparently been a bit iffy, I'll reserve judgment until I see it myself. What I am very excited about is the official soundtrack, which has also been released in its entirety, not just the commercial side with Tate McRae and Doja Cat and Ed Sheeran and that, but also the main bit I'm excited about is the score by Hans Zimmer. I've already listened to a lot of it and I'm planning on delving into both of these in the coming days, so watch this space. Over to World Rally, where the championship headed to Greece for the Acropolis Rally. It was a first win of the season for both Ott Tanak and his co-driver Martin Javoya, and Hyundai, breaking the Toyota stranglehold on 2025. The 2019 champion finished comfortably ahead of Seb Ogier after going all out on days 3 and 4. He had a 43-second lead going into the final day. He didn't hold back, he only let that slip by a small amount, ended up 32 seconds to the good come the finish. They started off level pegging in the super special stage held in the centre of Athens itself. Just 1.5 kilometres of basically doing donuts and showboating, but looked really cool. And the split was literally 0.0 seconds. I really do love the spectacle here. Ogier actually took his wing mirror trying to close the gap to Tanak. No 7 years of bad luck here though. Strangely, two people who struggled in this rally were Kalle Rovanperä and Thierry Neuville. In the last 4 years in Greece, they have 2 rally wins apiece. I'm way too proud of that rhyme. But Rovanperä kept going off the road with some uncharacteristic mistakes. He also later had a drive shaft issue. He almost plunged off a cliff on day 3, and he ended up almost 40 seconds off the lead come the end of the rally. Neuville, meanwhile, had not 1 but 3 punctures thanks to the treacherous gravel in Greece, dropping him well out of contention. Tanak's laser-focused driving combined with a seemingly bulletproof Hyundai were impossible to resist, and the car's warranty couldn't have been more perfect, with the gearbox giving up the ghost just after he crossed the line in the final stage. Oliver Solberg emerged on top in WRC2. He was so far ahead of a lot of the ailing Rally 1 cars that he ended up 6th overall in the final standings. Ali Turkan was victorious in WRC3 and also Junior WRC. All this to say, Elfyn Evans still has the championship lead, but his gap has been cut to just 9 points by Sébastien Ogier in P2, and Ott Tanak's just a further 3 points behind him, so this is going to get spicy, and we still have half the season to go. Can't wait. And next time out, we're in Estonia, so Ott Tanak should have home field advantage there. Over to Assen for the Dutch TT in MotoGP, and it was a familiar face of Marc Marquez taking the win. Pole sitter Fabio Quartararo sank like a stone at the start. He allowed Pecco Bagnaia to take the lead, but that itself didn't last long as Marquez swept through into the lead by the end of lap 5. And there really was no looking back after that, although Marquez Jr. had a pretty rough crash out after contact with Pedro Acosta. Flinging through the gravel, he and big brother Marc have finished 1-2 in the last 2 races. That run comes to an end here. Big brother carrying on the streak on his own. Marco Bezzecchi and Bagnaia traded places a little bit, but they finished 2-3 in that order. The Marquez brothers still lead the way in the standings. Marc gets some breathing room at the top of the standings, ahead of Alex in P2, Bagnaia 3rd, and Frankie Morbidelli hanging on in there in 4th. And let's finish off with NASCAR in Atlanta, or more specifically the Quaker State 400 available at Walmart in Atlanta, which is honestly one of the worst names for a motor race I've ever heard in my life. Bad name, but a great race with a great finish. Chase Elliott got past Brad Keselowski for his first win of 2025 with a ballsy last lap move, helped in no small part by his teammate Alex Bowman giving him a good shove from behind in 3rd. This had just about everything you could ask for from a NASCAR race: night racing, late moves to win, and of course some huge incidents to pick through. The first of these was on lap 58. Christopher Bell managed to trigger a relatively tame pile-up. Only Ryan Blaney suffered terminal damage, but where Bell failed just 9 laps later, a huge wreck triggered by Denny Hamlin being spun around took out 9 cars, including 7 race winners from 2025. Ross Chastain, Joey Logano, Chase Briscoe, Austin Cindric, Denny Hamlin himself, Joshua Berry, and somehow still the points leader, William Byron, who hasn't won a race since Daytona. Really was an excellent final lap, Chase taking the win ahead of Keselowski, Alex Bowman, Tyler Reddick and Eric Jones, who completed the top 5. As I mentioned, William Byron is still the points leader despite that one win, and Chase Elliott moves up into 2nd. That's pretty much it for this week. We've got another bumper weekend of Formula 1, 2 and 3 at Silverstone. Formula 4 is also joining them for the first time. We have the start of IndyCar's crazy July. I don't know what you call it. It's not a triple header, it's a quadruple header, I suppose. 4 races back to back to back to back. And the Chicago Street Racing NASCAR. Look out for Shane Van Gisbergen, the resident road course specialist. That'll do for now. Until next time, ta-ta and farewell.